Today, I want to talk about POLA, Principle of Least Astonishment. Components of a system should behave in a way that most users will expect it to behave. For example, last week I bought a computer and it I wanted to assemble it, so I bought memory and it comes in pair, DDR4 comes in pair. So I went and installed it on DIM A1 and B1 because for it's just natural for us to start from one. But what happened is the when the computer was turned on, the red light for the CPU as well as the memory was on, saying both of these are not detected. So here itself there's a violation. The the problem was only with memory, yet the motherboard said that it couldn't detect the CPU too. And I spent some time changing cables here and there trying to figure out and then decided, okay, maybe this motherboard is broken. I need to send it back. But then when I looked at the motherboard, there was a note that said you have to start with the A2 and B2, install on these two first. And I don't know why, if I were to do it, I would have gone with A1 and B1 since that's what is natural to us. So this is an example of violating POLA. REST APIs similarly have different verbs and people have certain expectations of what they do. Get is to get resources where you query something and it shouldn't change the state of a resource. Similarly, we use post to create a new resource and we shouldn't be using it to up query data. And I've seen people use post because the body you can put in a lot more data than you can in a URL. And so when they have to pass a whole bunch of data to query, they end up using post. Similarly, delete is for delete, put is to replace. So follow the conventions. Uh, Look at good sites like GitHub or Stripe. Look at their APIs, see how they pass API versionings, and how the identities, collections, how all those things they reach into, right? And follow those patterns because if you violate and create your own non-conventional stuff, then a new developer that comes after you may also learn that thing that's the right thing to do, and then they will repeat that behavior, and then you'll end up with more and more APIs that are doing their own thing. Similarly, when it comes to coding, your variable names need to be consistent with what it is doing. Sometimes over time, as code gets maintained and the variables are reused and they are used for other purposes, and the name becomes a lie. And there's nothing worse than a lie because people will read the name, assume what it is doing, and continue studying the code that way, but they're being misled. This is true both with variable names as well as functions. If a function says it does ABC, it should just do ABC. Private functions, you can make it really long and descriptive such that you don't even have to have comments. When it comes to public functions, you have to be short. So try to stick with that single responsibility principle to get that done. Implicit type conventions are also another surprise. When I was learning to program on Apache, I picked Python since Python is the easiest language that goes along with it. But Python would happily convert data records a type to a string and keep going. So it makes it hard to learn because these types are changing. You don't know where it happened. So then I eventually switched to Scala, where everything is strongly typed and I could learn better. Because if you try to assign to a string a record type, it's going to give an error. And so we can learn the functionalities of Apache correctly and the language correctly. So in general, when it comes to Pola, just when people may give you an API or in a design, you see something that is breaking conventions, just tell them, hey, there's something called principle of least astonishment, and we should not break it, right? We should be following it. This also comes even in UI, it's the same thing. We have our fingers have a memory. We expect certain shortcuts to do certain things. Control C means copy, Control V, paste, and so on and so forth, right? Control F, most of the time it's find. Whereas in something like Outlook, it'll be forward an email. So I would always get surprised when I press Control F out of muscle memory. and then the find button doesn't pop up. So just some things to keep in mind. And that's it. Thank you guys. Bye.